finish off. And this Satmar 67, the counter-reaction, the Rambam, the Yalkut Shimoni, and now the history of Hungary to be continued next week. There's Rathan Legal Kohen. Ending off the class as I've ended off my classes since 1981. We should meet again in health and happiness. Das Vidanya. Yosef moved next to me so that they should pick you up. Yomo, where's Yomo? Sorry, I need Yomo. He has disappeared. Let's. This has to be adjusted. Oh, perfect. I became a technician. Yosef and I go back many years, to be exact, 41 years, and there's a triple chord that unites us. Number one, I came back from my first trip to Russia, January 1981. A few weeks later, Yosef came back from 11 years in a hotel which he was forced into in communist Russia. The first time he spoke in public, Heichal Shlomo, the Mizrahi women from Canada, this gentleman spoke in Hebrew, and I translated it into English. Okay, that's the first connection. Next, he married a student of mine, Kahatja Sarusi, from Machon Gold, and Baruch Hashem, lekavod uleteferet, children, grandchildren, and you'll overtake me with the great-grandchildren, but you have a long way to go. Then you'll overtake my brother. With my brother, you have a long, long way to go. Kanayin Hara, Dr. Levi Rothkopf. Then the third connection, well, you're sitting in this room. Do you know where Rabbi Yosef got married? 1 second walk from here. The terrace that is locked off. And I can show you exactly where Menachem Begin stood and where Yitzchak Navon, the president, stood.
And the chief rabbi.
The chief rabbi certainly will be here, but we got a Begin and Navon with all the security. Yosef, I had a terrible experience today. I told the guard downstairs that a famous Russian Jew is coming. He's a Russian Jew. He didn't even know your name. And I told him, do you know about the attempt to hijack the plane in 1970? And he looked at me like I stepped off the moon. Tell us about the documentary, what you put out, how everyone can access it, because ultimately thousands of people will hear this year. And why did you put it out?
Exactly for the reason that people don't know. Some of them still don't remember. And the majority is altogether ignorant for some reasons. As to the Russian Jewry doesn't know its history, for it didn't exist under Soviet regime. You know, it was one of the ways of assimilating us, not to tell us about our history. It's why they don't know. What's ridiculous and ironically is that the Jewish agency and all other organizations don't teach them as well. So for 50 years, you mentioned 1970, that we were arrested, more than 50 years, I expected that somebody will tell the story. And lately, more than that, using the ignorance of people, some people start telling all kinds of different stories, telling that they did it, whatever. So it was my challenge to do it myself. Myself, mamish, with my hands. Normally, I am not a filmmaker, and not a producer, and not a wealthy man. But, God help me and another friend, a former fusnik for many years, Alexander Rasgon, made the film, and people estimate it as a professional and documentary. For we invited people from Lishkat Kesher, from Nativ, and they told that's true.
But I just want to tell them what Lishkat Kesher is. When, as all of you know, my wife and I worked for the Mossad for 10 years. We lived a double existence. It's not for now, but there are 2 books written about it. One is in Hebrew, B'netiv Hadmama, you'll meet Malka and Aaron Rakefet, and a guy named Rakefet in his 7th book entitled From Washington Avenue to Washington Street. There are a number of chapters on Russia, and in Rakefet's Rakefet Aaron Chelik Daled, there's more material. The security clause was lifted. Now, when I say we worked for the Mossad, that is correct. It was a branch of the Mossad that dealt with Russian Jewry since 1952. No one knows how long it's been in existence. That was called by many names. The technical name is Lishkat HaKesher, to keep the kesher, the knot between us, the continuance, the relationship. It's also known as Nativ. Nativ means a path, and that's why the book is called Nativ Hadmama, the silent path, that you can't publicize it. Okay, then that's what Yosef is referring to.
Anyway, it was very important that the professionals estimate that it's a true story. And it is nowadays in their library, in the video library. So, but normally people don't look, if you don't remember, you are not looking for that. So I appreciate your initiative to give me another chance.
Okay, so I want to ask you, can they get it on YouTube?
Yeah, sure, I prepared it here. Maybe you will put on your video later on, but it's...
Okay, this is the link that they need to get it on YouTube.
Sure.
Okay, okay, so we're going to publicize it both here, and we're going to put it on YU Torah, so that when they hear you speaking, they will know they will know exactly where to go. Okay, so now you'll put it on. Professor Tarragon will take care of it. We're in good. We are in good hands. Yosef, I've been teaching Torah 63 years. How many people I've influenced, I don't know. I never wanted to leave teaching Torah, and I write about it now. I'm writing on the Shmuel Belkin, the second president of Yeshiva University, who no one here knows about. But do you realize how much influence you had on the Jewish world? And I want to tell you a story. This volume just appeared. Hidden Heroes by Pamela Brown Cohen.
Pam Cohen, Union Councils for Soviet Jewry.
Exactly. She writes about it.
And she published my book in English.
Right. Let me tell the class what I got out of the book. Here is a lady at home in a suburban Chicago wealthy suburb. Husband is making a good living. They belong to a Reformed temple. Their home is not kosher. They are totally assimilating. If things had gone normal, there wouldn't be a descendant of theirs left Jewish today, except maybe a miracle if Chabad or NCSY picked up someone. She's listening to the radio. She writes it, 1970, and they interrupt with news that an attempt was made to hijack a plane in Leningrad, and so many people have been arrested, mainly Jews. You know where that lady is today? She's in Yerushalayim I believe she's wearing a shekel. I saw a picture of
Yeah,
her.
sure.
A shekel, a
But
shomer.
not Haredi.
No, Baruch Hashem. My wife covers her hair, and my daughters and my granddaughters.
Haredi Tzioni.
But Haredi Tzioni, absolutely. Haredim L'Dvach Hashem. If you're not a Tzioni, you're not a proper Haredi L'Dvach Hashem. 100%. Yosef, did you ever realize the influence you would have? Tell us here, you suffered 11 years in prison, in labor camp. Your stories about Pesach that you made, the Hanukkah, the Yom Kippur that you observed the wrong day. Remember? Yeah. Because Shabbos, the impact, if anyone with a Jewish heart has to be moved, you can't go on being a human being without Judaism when they hear your stories. And here he's sitting right before you.
Anyway, to put things straight, it's not me. Certainly it's Ribono Shel Olam. And then what we are bringing in this documentary, it was a certain stage of development of underground Jewish Zionist movement in Soviet Union. We were the last one, but there were many prisoners of Zion that were arrested in the 30s, in the 40s, tortured, killed, whatever. And finally we had State of Israel, Medinat Israel, and we had like a consequence, in zchut of Medinat Israel, we could do that. Not us. You know, understand? The importance is that we have our Medina. You know, I talk to my friends, Haredim Russian Jews. I say, okay, I'm with you in criticism, whatever is going here. But we have to remember, if not the State of Israel, you will still stay in Soviet Union, assimilated and forgotten. It's very important to underline. You know, I'm very critical myself on whatever is going in State of Israel. But we have to understand that it is a value by itself. You know, you can criticize. We would like to improve it. And then there was a hero, a leader, Mark Dimshitz, that led the group, that was forgotten altogether.
Now, I want to raise an issue that is as real today as it was 50 years ago, and even before. And I have to tell you, in reading the book, this lady is shocked when she first gets involved in trying to help Soviet Jews. She is absolutely shocked that they're criticizing the government of Israel. We have a problem here. Did you know that the government of Israel was against what you were doing, trying to hijack a plane?
Yeah, sure.
You're aware of it?
Yeah.
Do you realize what's happening today with the Ukraine? What they want, arms we should supply, but Russia, Syria, yeah. Russian Jews.
Yeah. And only yesterday, Russia and Ukraine voted in UN demanding that Israel will be, out from nuclear weapon. They united Russia and Ukraine together against Israel, which is their real face.
Right. And you realize why Israel was opposed? Do you understand the difficulty we have here?
Yeah.
It's I can tell you something that's not well known. In my classroom, I've spoken about it. Archives have been opened, and a student of mine went through the archives of the Herzog family, and they found a letter from the Rav to President Chaim Herzog. Are you aware of this?
No, never heard about it.
It was published in Makor Rishon, and then they contacted me, and they found a letter from the Rav.
What year approximately? In the 50s?
No, this is from the 80s, the early 80s. In the election, when Kahana, I think it was 81, was elected to the Knesset,
yeah.
Herzog, as president, had to view every head of every party to decide who he's going to empower to form the government. He met with the Arab parties that would love to destroy Israel. Until today they say it openly, and he wouldn't meet with Kahana. So this letter comes to Herzog with the Rav's signature. We did a lot of research. Everyone is convinced that it's a forgery. I even have a theory who did it. It had to be someone who had access to the Rav's mail, because the Rav at that point was Lo Aleinu crippled, and it was his shamasim who controlled him. But
I was told that even then he did remember what Sugia he read, he learned the day before. He forgot everything, but he remembered.
This is before he was totally out of it. 1985. His last year was December 1985, Hanukkah. Then he couldn't leave Boston. Lo Aleinu was vet from a mensch. I don't know. We have to be humble. But the letter was a forgery. At least I believe so, and the Soloveitchik family believes. There are reasons why I can prove it, but it's not for now. Herzog answered the letter. And you know what he wrote back? That I can't accept Kahana because the Russians are watching and the Arabs are watching. And I'm worried about what will happen to the Jews in Russia and in the Arab lands. So you see the difficulty Israel has. You know what my answer is? I say what Kahana did, the demonstrations, it was fabulous. He woke us up. He ran after, you can't believe it. The Russian consul in New York on Park, he ran after Russian cars. They were throwing cucumbers and tomatoes at the... Now, Israel had to deny it has anything to do with it. Could you imagine how that would affect the Jews in Russia? On the other hand, God had to do what he did. I can't oppose him on that level. I think he woke us up to the issue of Russian Jewry.
With your permission, I'll tell you a story. When I was released in 1981, I was invited to see America, to meet American Jewry, and I met Rav Moshe Feinstein Zatzal, and I asked him to ask the Yeshiva Bochrim to take part in demonstrations. So Rav Moshe Feinstein told me, I am a former Soviet Jew. I know that you cannot oppose the Soviet government, for it will make only worse to the Soviet Jewry. I told Rabbi, the time has been changed. We are in that bad situation. You can't spoil anything just to save us. It's very important. And he told, there was other people around him, he told, Mendelevich in this issue is more knowledgeable than me. You are my poisek. If you say it should be done, I order all Yeshiva Bochrim to go on the demonstrations.
Beautiful. So I can tell you, I have a major piece that's ready for publication on rabbinic authority. And I can tell you the greatest embarrassment in my life was exactly this period when the word went out that the religious Jews, Halpern, from the glasses, the wrestler, the rabbi, the Talmud Chacham, Rafal Halpern, he contacted Lishkat HaKesher. I want to make a demonstration in Bnei Brak. Aryeh Crow, Zeichet Tzadik Levracha, he headed up this division of the Mossad that he was my handler in English, Hamafil Shalei. I revere the man's memory. Second to the Rav, I never met anyone that I admire so as Aryeh Crow. Second to Rav, second to Mori Rebbe, Reb Yosef Dov, Halevi Soloveitchik. So Aryeh Crow says to me, Harav HaKeshet, Ani masmich otcha liyot ish hakesher beinenu levein Halpern. V'tizkar, remember, give him the rules. Our rules were you don't criticize the Soviet Union. Israel is not out to criticize. We want reparation. Jewish families can go back to their homeland, go back to their family. That's what we want. Well, I met with him. He took me. He had 2 restaurants there. I think they're the only kosher restaurants in Dizengoff. One Fleischix, one Milchix. Took me out to lunch. I was impressed. This is Raphael Halpern, and when he wants to do something, he has money and influence and power and connections. And they sent Rabbi Teitz from America to tell. I was so embarrassed. We don't demonstrate in the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Times have changed. You have to ask the experts. I write about this and I show sources.
So mention the story as well.
Unbelievable.
It's a first-hand story.
First-hand story, Moshe. Now, I want to touch upon something else that you alluded to. And almost everyone in this room is an Oleh. And, Ida Nudel, the famous Ida Nudel, I trust everyone knows I'm talking about, that little lady who suffered so. Joan Fonda went to visit her. I mean, you have to give credit, even a non-Jew, the feeling, the Mesirat Nefesh. She was very unhappy in Israel, very disappointed. And, there's the dream and there is the reality. And I think what you said is very, very important. No one can be more critical than Israel than we who live here. But we have to thank God. We have a state, we have elections, we have religious parties, we have to deal with the non-religious, and I always feel...
We have the army.
Baruch Hashem, if not for the army, we couldn't be sitting here now. People here from Ma'ale Adumim, there was just a pigua in Ma'ale Adumim, in Kiryat Arba.
I managed to serve in IDF after being released.
Kol HaKavod. I know, someone wrote to me, he met you in IDF. I did basic training at the age of 38. Chayal Mitztayim. At the 15 years, I lectured in the army. But what you say is very correct. We have to be happy. But part of it is our fault. Why didn't we come in Aliyah? 1880s, 1890s.
1948.
Right? Why are we criticizing? Had we come, it would have been a different state.
We criticize for love. If you are ignorant, if you are neutral, you say it's beautiful, that's so. But it is ours.
Right.
And as far as it is ours, it makes us pain. Bring us pain. It reflects the real passion and love if it makes you pain.
Right, exactly. We care. It's like a child. It's like...
You're a child.
Exactly. And let me ask you another question. Did you ever interact with Ida Nudel? It always hurt me that she was upset with the reality here.
See, when I was arrested, no movement had been existed at that time, so we never met. But later, when she was released, we met and cooperated. And I tried to explain her but they couldn't do anything. There were a lot of conflicts and,
Could part of it be the fact that she was not religious? She didn't have that religious feeling, B'sach HaKol, with all our problems, Shabbat is Shabbat, Kashrut is Kashrut. We have here beautiful, beautiful people, Yehuda v'Shomron. What you see there, I have many grandchildren living in the Shomron, they're all over. And I see, they're minyanim, they don't know what life is like. They go to minyan in their building, Mincha, Mariv, outside in the street, Rosh Chodesh, Shabbos.
I will tell something about myself, and it will maybe answer your question about Ida Nudel. People ask me, how was my absorption in Israel? I told no absorption. To begin with, that I spoke Hebrew. But more important, people come, look for a community to whom to adjust, I never looked for my community. I had my community. Torah, mitzvahs, Eretz Yisrael, I found it immediately, and I immediately became a part of it. People that are looking still with whom to be together, it brings certainly this kind of conflicts,
Well said. And I always felt bad that she came here after such a struggle, but never found herself. It hurt. On the other hand, you take a look, Yuli Edelstein, who I smuggled in. You have no idea. I was a pauper, and suddenly Aryeh Kroll gives me this, had to be 85 already. Aryeh Kroll, our second trip. We were there 3 times, but I sent over 300. Malk and I sent over at least over 200 people, could be even more. You know, it's a whole process to find people who have a dual citizenship, know how to keep secrets, happily married, can teach Gemara, and to send and to prepare and to brief. So I came in with thousands of dollars, which, with Tanya's Zona Levracha, we bought in the Berioska, the foreign currency shop, expensive whiskey, and I had foods that they gave me in London. The Mossad over there gave me cheese and salamis, all glatt kosher, and she used it to bribe, the liquor to bribe the gods to send in the kosher food for him. And here you have an example. Look what if someone would have told me, Yuli Edelstein will one day be one of the most important people in Israel, Anatoly Sharansky, Natan Sharon, Hayom. Take a look how they conquered. There was a Yuli Stern. I don't know if you remember him.
My closest friend.
Your close. So let me tell you about your closest friend. 1981, you know, the cover, I'm from Queens, I'm speaking, and I pulled it off, Baruch Hashem, Queens, this, that. Only to a few people I was to say, Drishat Shalom me Shmuel Chatzar. Who is Shmuel Chatzar? He was at the International Book Festival. He headed up the Israeli desk. So all the refusenikim knew him. So the minute I said Drishat Shalom Mishmul Chatzar, they knew where I was coming from. That the rest is a bluff. He never heard that. Later there's a demonstration for you, and my wife is making posters, etc. And he comes into our house to pick up the posters. My wife is an artist. And he faints. He says, "What are you doing here? You live in Queens." Mata second. I said, "I live in Queens like the Chinaman lives in Queens." I said, this was Yuli Stern. These people so integrated. It was beautiful to see.
I will point maybe something else. If you were important leader in Soviet Russia and you come to be again something prominent, it is a mistake. As we say, Ein Malach Shaliach You made it in Soviet Russia. Okay, now you are regular. It was helped me to get a justice to Israel. I never felt that somebody is that I deserve something, you know. Okay. I'm a regular. I did there whatever I could do, for it was my challenge. Here in Israel, I'm a regular. It is very, very, very healthy approach.
You're absolutely right. And I'm going to tell you a little story that happened in this very building. A lot of American rabbis come in Aliyah. One of these famous American rabbis, his children studied here, his children taught here, his grandchildren studied here, and he would daven here as Shoshana Yom Kippur. And one Yom Kippur, he grabs me like this, he says, "Reb Aaron, when I davened in America in my shul in Brooklyn, 1,000 pairs of eyes were upon me. When I daven here, no one looks at me." So I said to Rabbi Horowitz, "Let him speak, Ne'ilah, Bima Chabachim to speak he needs." But you should know, a year later he was back in Florida, a rabbi in a senior citizens complex, and that's where he died. But all his descendants, almost all, live here. So
Einaim Hashem bo mirishit shana ad acharit shana. It's the most important eyes that are following you, more than important than the thousands there in Golan.
Exactly. So I want to say to my dear students, both sitting in front of me and both listening across the world, this was a moment in time, and I want to end off, I want to tell Rabbi Yosef something else. You don't know how your getting out of Russia gave myself and my wife the greatest mitzvah that we have, okay? Now I'm going to tell you. I write about it. Who got you out? Ultimately, it was the Bronfman family, the World Jewish Congress. I was over.
You know what's Jewish Congress, World Jewish Congress, is a small office and one secretary. An executive director is just,
and
more than big.
And Yisrael Singer, Rabbi. So when you came out in Bronfman, and you don't know what went on here, they announced on the radio, you're missing from labor camp. And everyone was upset, where are you? And a few hours later, we heard that Bronfman, his private plane, and it was
a
regular plane. When did he use a private plane with? Esas?
Ida Nudel.
Ida Nudel. I remember he once used his own private plane. And then you come here. When we were overwhelmed in Russia by the Esas family, Eliyahu, Anya, the children. So Mark and I organized a big committee consisting of two people. I print in Washington, you have a picture. We print Committee for the Release of the Esas family. I went to America. I met with senators, with congressmen, and I met with Rav Moshe Sherer. But everyone told me, you have to get to Bronfman. I said, yeah, he got out. Yosef Mendelevich. I got to Bronfman. You know, I got to Bronfman. Yisrael Singer's niece was my student in the Chala. Yeah. She got me into her uncle, and we hit it off. And he got to Bronfman, and the Mossad, Aryeh Kroll, I get a phone call, Erev Shabbos Kodesh, Pasha Toldot, 1985. Harav Rakefet. I'm on my way to the Kotel. It's an hour before Shabbat. Hitzlachta. Anachnu matzdiim lecha. Mossad saluting me. Bronfman is getting us out. Sunday, I finished teaching. I used to teach Sunday afternoon. Now I can't teach that. I teach only 2 mornings a week. I'm older. I don't have that energy in the afternoon. Amen, amen. The Mossad, I was a pauper. Mossad pays for all the calls. Call Russia, call Esas. I call Esas. אנחנו מדברים ככה, ושמעת משהו על יציאת מצרים, ככה לשון קצת סודית. אני מנסה לעזור, והוא מבין מיד, הוא תופס את זה מיד. לא שמעתי. מי יצא? הנשים, הטף, הכל. כאילו שמשה רוצה, לא פרו. When the phone call is over, and remember, 4 people are on the phone. I'm on the phone, Esas is on the phone, the KGB is on the phone, and the Mossad is on the phone. You can hear them breathing. The operator asks us, I'll never forget this, the Israeli operator, Yesh Chadashot, ואני עונה, לא. והיא אומרת לי, תהיינה חדשות טובות, אל תדאג, אני הקלטתי את זה, עד היום אפשר לשמוע את זה, הקלטה שלי של השיחה. A few weeks later, they announced Bronfman with the deal for the vodka. He will not sign $100 million plus deal at that time unless the Esas family is included. And I want them for the World Jewish Congress Assembly.
You know, when I thanked Bronfman for whatever he did, he told me, I am only the straw that break the camel bone. But the most important was your struggle.
Right.
World struggle for Soviet Jewry. He was a decent man.
Listen, if these students can tell the world about what you did for Abba Kosa and Mora and Matzah and Hanukkah candles, it will create so many more Jews. So, all right, we're shlichim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is, God put us in a certain, Achshav shenotzati. I once heard a lot of Torah from the Rav. If God would have created us before our time, we wouldn't have succeeded. But we created a certain period where we can be successful. But as successful as we are, we have to be model HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to remain humble. Al hanisim va'al haniflat. This was a moment of time. I started. Thank everyone for participating. I can only tell you, next Sunday, Monday, I pick up just where I left off. On Sunday, we pick up with, do you have to eat meat at a Brit Milah? And we go into the whole Hasidic world. You'll see why Reb Menashe Klein is different than Reb Moshe Feinstein. And Monday, we pick up exactly where we ended a few minutes ago. Satmar in America, the connection to Hungary, Austritt in Germany, Synagogue Council, and all that bedevils us until today. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank Reb Yosef.
Again, please, people, friends, watch the movie.
Right.
And give over to other people. It is very important, very educative, very true to life.
Right. And I was going to end off with that. But I want to thank Reb Yosef. I never enjoyed a book more than this little.
Except of my Unbroken Spirit.
Well, Unbroken Spirit. And what about your book on what went on in Russia with the draft? What do they call them? What's your book called? Not the Moranos. They drafted in the army.
Cantonist.
The Cantonist.
Yeah,
that was your master's thesis.
And now I wrote another book, whatever I did here in Israel after my release.
Wow.
It's called Prisoner of Zion in Zion.
Prisoner of Zion, beautiful. It's almost, that's even better than mine.
Prison for Zion. I
Zion.
see here's David Stoll watching us.
Right.
One of the leaders of the student struggle for civil Jewry. He always never say prison of Zion, prison for Zion.
For Zion, very, very good.
Zion al natishali shlom asirai.
And you're looking there, the third person, he's listening from Hollywood, Florida, and there's a person listening from Chicago, and there's a person listening from Brooklyn, etc., etc. So I just want to repeat what Reb Yosef just said. Pass on the word, and I want to have a schut d'shamayim that I arranged this today, that one day the Ribbon Shalom will say to me, over 100,000 people saw the documentary as a result of this moment of dialogue. Until we meet again in health and happiness, let me hear it. Das Vidanya.
Kol Tuv.